Good day everyone. So for this video, I will be discussing the topic that I choose, the title, the selection of delta and core. But before I will proceed, I will introduce myself first. By the way, I am Cyril Tayam from Section India. So the topic that I choose, the topic that I discuss first is delta. So what is delta? So delta, since the delta may appear in different ridge characteristic, the following rules shall govern its selection when there is a choice between two or more possible deltas. So sa delta, it is a point or in a ridge or in front of a nearest center of divergence of the two type lines. So sa delta, makita na to siya sa duha ka divergence makita to sa divergence sa duha ka type lines. So also delta, also called as outer terminus. So unsa man sad ning type lines? So si type lines, it is a point of divergence the two type lines. So si type lines is katunay siyang duha ka ridge nga naa sa delta. So next, I will proceed to the rules of delta. So there are 5 rules of delta. The first rule is the delta may not be located at the bifurcation which does not open towards the core. So rule number 1 stated that rule number 1, it is a loop type pattern. As you notice, naay duha ka type lines in this area of divergence. So naay duha ka bifurcation, the bifurcation 1 and the bifurcation 2. As you notice the illustration. So naay duha ka bifurcation. And then ang gipangita sa rule number 1 is the delta may not be located at the bifurcation which does not open towards the core. So therefore, ang gipangita ni rule number 1 or ang gipasabot number 1 diri is ang mamahimong delta is ang katuang bifurcation or ang atong pilion nga bifurcation is ang katuang nakaatubang sa core. So ang nakatubang sa core is si bifurcation number 1. So therefore, ang ato ang pilion is si bifurcation number 1 kay in rule number 1 stated that the delta may not be located at the bifurcation which does not open towards the core. So next is rule number 2. So rule number 2, when there is a choice between a bifurcation and another type of delta, the bifurcation is selected. So ang giingon po sa rule number 2 is when there is a choice between a bifurcation. So naadri ang short ridge, dot, a bifurcation, converging ridge, and ridge ending. So however, the 2 point of divergence is also there's a lot of possible deltas or deltas. So ang pilion nato nga mamahimong delta diri as rule number 2 is ang katuang sa katuang bifurcation. So unsa din ang bifurcation? So kaning bifurcation, it is a splitting of one ridges or two or more branches. So naa siya duha ka branches ang bifurcation. So next is rule number 3. Sa rule number 3, if there are a series of bifurcation opening towards the core equally close to the point of divergence of the type lines, the delta nearest to the core shall be selected. So in rule number 3, naay upat ka bifurcation. So sa upat ka bifurcation, ang ato ang pilion nga mahimong delta is ang katuang nearest sa bifurcation didto sa core. So therefore, ang bifurcation number 2 ang pinakaduol sa delta. So mao ang ato ang pilion nga bifurcation. Kay rule number 3 is stated that if there are a series of bifurcation opening towards the core equally close to the point of diverging of the type lines, the delta nearest to the core shall be selected. So, rule number 4. So, rule number 4, when there are two or more possible deltas which conform to the definition, the one nearest the core is chosen. So, diri sa rule number 4, makita nato nga naay dot, which is dot, short ridge, ridge ending. So, diri sa rule number 4, ang pilion nato nga nga delta is ang katuang closer sa core. So, diri as illustration, based on illustration, ang pinakaduol sa core is si dot. So, therefore, ang giingon sa rule number 4, when there are two or more possible deltas which conform to the definition, the one nearest the core is chosen. So, ang pinakaduol kang core mao ay atong pilion nga mahimo. So, therefore, si dot ang pinakaduol sa core. So, therefore, si dot ang ato ang pilion. So, rule number 5. So, rule number 5, the deltas may not be located in the middle of a ridge running between the type lines towards the core, but at the nearer end only. So, diri as a number 5 is stated that diri as a divergence, as you can see in illustration, diri as a divergence sa duha ka type lines is naa sa center si dot, but do not put your delta sa middle of the ridge. Dapat naa siya sa ridge ending. So, ang ato ang pilion diha ay si ridge ending. Kay siya ang pinakaduol sa core. So, balik ko na to. Si rule number 5, the delta may not be located in the middle of a ridge, running between the type lines towards the core, but at the nearer end only. So, ang ato ang pilion diha, si ridge ending. Kay siya ang pinaka-nearer sa core. So, next topic is the core. So, what is core? So, core, as the name implies, it is the approximate center of the pattern. So, si core, siya ang pinaka-sentro or approximate center of the pattern, or also called as inner terminus. So, rule number 1, the core is placed upon or within the innermost sufficient record. So, in rule number 1, in the core, stated that si core, makita nato siya sa pinakasentro or pinakaloob. So, therefore, the center is near the core of the loop type pattern. So, as you can see the illustration, so makita nato si core is nasa sa pinaka-center or ang pinakaloob. So, therefore, si core or the innermost sufficient record is nasa center. So, rule number 2. So, rule number 2, when the innermost sufficient record contains no ending ridge or rod rising as high as the shoulder of the loop, the core is placed on the shoulder of the loop farther from the delta. So, ang giingon po diri sa rule number 2, therefore, if where is the shoulder of the loop farther from the delta, so therefore he is a core. So, kinsa ang therefore if ang shoulder sa loop is if layo siya sa delta, so siya ang core. So, balik ko na to. Ang rule number 2, when the innermost sufficient record contains no ending ridge or rod rising as high as the shoulder of the loop, the core is placed on the shoulder of the loop farther from the delta. So, mao na ang rule number 2 of the core. So, next is rule number 3 of a core. Rule number 3 stated that when the innermost sufficient record contains an uneven number of rods rising as high as the shoulders, the core is placed upon the end of the center rod, whether it touches the looping ridge or not. So in rule number 3 is stated that uh, uh, when we say uneven, mo ni siyang katong mga bungkig or mga dili pares. So the example of that is 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, and so on. So diri as a rule number 3, naa siya 5 ka rod. So if there are 5 rod, and the rules stated that if kinsa ang center or kinsa ang center at the end of a center rod, siya ang mahimo ang core. So therefore, kung kinsa ang pinaka-center di sa rule number 3, siya ang piliun nga core. Rule number 3 stated that when the innermost sufficient curve contains an uneven number of rods rising as high as the shoulder. So the core is placed upon the end of the center rod whether it touches the looping ridge or not. So the last rule of the core is rule number 4. So rule number 4, when the innermost sufficient curve contains an uneven number of rods rising as high as the shoulder, the core is placed upon the end of the farther one of the two center rods. The two center rods being treated as though they were connected by a recurving ridge. So therefore, if rule number 3 is uneven sa bungkig-bungkig, so si rule number 4 po is even number. So when we say even number, pares-pares siya. So you say for example 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, and so on. So as a rule number 4, if aday upat ka ridges, so upat, so even. So the center of the rods between the two rods are ang gipangita diha is ang katuang layo sa delta. So therefore the rods are the core. So kinsa ang pinakalayo sa delta nga rods, mo tawagon nga core. So mao ra to ang akong discussion sa ako ang topic nga gipili. Mao ra to og daghang salamat.